I don't know, but I gotta go. I'm on computer now.
All right, as everyone's coming in, we just want to make sure you know that you will have audio and video capabilities throughout this session. We do ask that if you're not the one speaking, to try to keep yourself muted just to give the person speaking the respect of no background noise. And so I think we're ready to go.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our networking sessions, Opportunities to Influence Teaching as a Profession. My name is Crystal Applewhite, and I'm going to be your facilitator. I am the new program manager for education and training. So I'm excited to meet everyone in this virtual space, so welcome. Today's session is just what it says, is an opportunity to influence the standards, which, if you don't know, our cluster, education and training, is up for review this year, which basically means we're going to decide if we need to make any changes, keep everything as it currently is without any revisions, or possibly get rid of some programs that are not showing the numbers that we think they should. So today, it's going to be imperative and invaluable that I hear back from you, the educators, because you are the content specialists, because you do this every day. So I'm going to basically have a list of questions that I'm going to be asking, and I really, really, really would love your feedback, because sometimes as educators, we're not often given the time to give feedback in the beginning. And as this is a new review process for the teaching as a profession, I would love to hear from people who have actually taught it, or who are about to teach it. What are you nervous about, or how can I help in any ways? So let's kick this off. So currently, as the standards are written, do you feel that the standards are teacher accessible or teacher friendly? Can I have anyone, you want to raise your hand, and Kristina can let me know so that you can talk to me about it.
I'm not seeing any hand raises or anything in the chat quite yet.
Okay. Remember, this is the best opportunity. It is a safe space. You can give me your woes, your comments, your questions, anything, just throw it at me, because when it's time to review, I want to make sure that your voices are the ones that are heard, because you matter, because you're going to be the ones who are actually teaching the courses. So how do we feel about the standards currently? Or how are we implementing them in our classrooms?
Hey, Crystal, this is Kayleigh speaking. I don't really see where I can raise my hand.
Okay.
But I just thought I'd jump in here real quick.
Absolutely,
if that's okay.
That's fine. Go ahead, Kayleigh. I'd love to hear from you.
As someone that has taught the program over the past few years, I know there's been in the past a lot of complaints about how in-depth or even rigorous the standards are. I actually love the standards and the fact that they are rigorous, because as a relatively young teacher and someone that's still working on my master's and stuff, I think it's really important for students going into college to understand the expectation of the workload. So I'm in support of the current standards, but one question that I have is, and It was my understanding that a couple of years ago, the program was opened up to any endorsed teacher beyond just where in the past you had to have the Family and Consumer Sciences endorsement. And there was supposed to be a training. I was actually going to help with that, and that didn't happen. So I guess just moving forward, thinking about other teachers across the state that maybe don't have the same background, I was wondering if there was any updates on that.
Okay, well, you are right, Kayleigh. In the beginning, you did have to have the Family and Consumer Science endorsement. Currently, it is saying that you can have an endorsement, any teacher with a professional educator license in grades 6 through 12. As far as the training is concerned, we're working right now on reviewing the standards. So the training is going to come after possibly us actually getting through the revision of this whole entire cluster. So I can't really give you a date. When I say I'm new, I'm literally, this is day 10 for me, but I do know that that is something that we're going to delve into in the future.
Awesome. And welcome aboard, by the way. I'm so happy to finally have a contact person. So thank you so much for answering that.
You're welcome, Kayleigh. Thank you.
Crystal, we had one in the chat here. Maggie said she's looked at the standards, but they're very open-ended. That's good in one way, but maybe a little more guidance would be helpful.
Okay. Does anyone agree with Maggie, thinking that the standards are a little too open-ended for our students? What about the fundamentals of education course? Does anyone teach that? How do you feel about this first level? Are we giving our students too much to do with the artifacts and all of those things? Can I get some feedback about this course?
This is Jennifer Dillman. I'm at Oakland High School in Rutherford County, and we have several schools that have really strong programs that we've had for quite a while. And that is one of the things, well, there's a couple of things, but one of the things for FOED for us is really our, it's kind of our like class for our freshmen who decide if they're going to continue in the pathway. So it's the class where we get a lot of, you know, kids, freshmen that they need a place to go. It's an open class type of thing. So, but it's also kind of our like clear, like our check, you know, for our programs where they come in, you know, FOED, and then we look at, you know, how well they do, and they kind of get a taste of what the curriculum is. But I think leaving that FOED class more, or the standards that are in it, the majority of the standards that are in it, some of them I think need to move to the upper classes, because those freshmen are just not ready. Like a freshman cannot write a teaching philosophy. They just haven't been given enough information within those standards, and because it's a freshman class, and because those freshman classes are, you know, it's not always the pathway that they picked, but it's a class that they have to have. We still want it to be valuable for them, and it's still like the place where I kind of convince them that this is really what you want to do. Like, this is a good pathway. Like, there's a lot of options, you know, besides just maybe what the picture that they have in their mind of what a teacher is, you know. But I think
that this is Linda Hossel from Livingston Academy, and I certainly agree with that. That FOED class needs to be fun and upbeat and a catch-all to keep our students in that program of study. I totally agree.
right, and I think there's a couple of standards that are in that FOED class that I think are just would be better served in some of the upper classes, like a lot of the teaching philosophy type stuff. I think those things fit better, maybe an introduction to the philosophers themselves, or then the theorists themselves, but like the in-depth on the theories, I think needs to push up. And there's a couple of standards within the upper classes that I think are more generalized, like the personality and the learning style stuff that we can push down. that will give them a better like base, and will also make that class useful for, you know, those kids that even if they don't choose that as their pathway, they're still getting something out of it that they can use just in their own education type thing. And then also, and this is kind of off, it's a separate thing, but if we could please rename these things TAP 1, 2, 3, and 4 because our guidance and our kids get so confused with this FOED and then TAP 1, 2, 3. Like we have a lot of confusion with that.
I totally hear you, Ms. Dillman. Can someone mute really fast so she can hear me? Thank you, guys. I totally hear what you're saying. So basically what I got from you, Ms. Dillman, is that you're saying that sometimes the fundamental class is used as a catch-all, but then you're still able to see which students maybe want to continue with the education program, and that some of the standards need to be a little bit more generalized for this first level. And maybe we should change some of the standards that are in the upper levels, kind of bring those down because they'll be more beneficial to entry-level students. And then I also said, I heard that we need to make it more fun in order to keep kids wanting to participate in this program of study. And then lastly, we need to think of some new names for the classes because it can often get confusing with all of them being named TAP 1, TAP 2, TAP 3. So that is great feedback. Can I get some feedback from someone else? Also, if you have options for names that you think we should name them, this is a great opportunity to put everything on the floor, because here's the time to get your voice heard, to make the changes that you want to see coming. And just so you know, these changes will be occurring in the 22-23 school year. So I'll spend this whole year reviewing and rewriting and listening to everyone in our advisory council, but everything that we're doing right now won't go into effect until the 22-23 school year. All right, who's next?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Kathy, and I teach at Franklin High School.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm starting my 37th year, and it's all been in early childhood and teaching as a profession. So I just have so many thoughts, like way too many for this kind of session. But I use it as a profession as my capstone for my early childhood. And that seems to work the absolute best for my situation. We run an on-site child care center, full-time, 5 days a week, 7 to 5, 4, something like that. And so my early childhood, I start with just such a basic child development. And then by the time they get to be seniors, they really understand teaching as a profession. Like they do not get it as freshmen and sophomore. So the perfect blend to me is both of the courses, or both of the pathways kind of as one, because the early childhood gets a bad rap because it seems like everybody just wants to be a daycare center worker, and that's not the case. Like all my students want to be teachers, but if they don't have that foundation, not foundations of education, but the foundations in child development, human development, relationships, there's no way they can understand teaching when they, and looking at the teaching career, honestly. I don't know, but I think all the standards, they were rewritten for Common Core sounding standards. And they are so confusing. Like when somebody's taught the same thing 37 years and can't understand the standards themselves, you kind of know they're a little they're just wordy. They are just way, way too much. They need to be completely scrapped and start again. And I do think it's fine. Everybody said, I think it's fine to be able to have fun in these classes and let students know that this is a fun career. It's not all about writing philosophy from day one when you're a freshman. I can't imagine how students would not be turned off immediately for that. So I'm excited. I am so happy that we're going to get some new standards because they are long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you. And so what I got from you is that you are currently combining both programs together, kind of like in your own way, because you've done it a long time. And you think it would be good if we blended it and maybe made the standards not so wordy and make sure that we made them accessible to teachers and understandable for teachers, and make sure that we continue to make our progression of study for students fun.
Yes. And let me just say, my second level in my child care, early childhood 2 is a 2-hour block. So they get their 3 credits for the concentrator. And then teaching as a profession is like it's an elective basically. So it doesn't count, and they still get their 3 credits. So I didn't want anybody to think I was doing it wrong. So.
Okay. So in the near future, I'm going to be coming up with a committee that's going to help assist with the standards, looking at them more in depth. And I would love if you are interested in being on that committee, if you have experience teaching these classes. And just like I heard someone, our last guest had 37 years. If that's the case and you want to make sure that your voice is heard when we are rewriting these standards, please put your name and your email address in the chat. And I'm going to take that to build out a committee of people to help in this process. So anyone else? Can I have some comments?
I can talk. So I currently teach early childhood levels 1, 2, and 3 in Anderson County. And we're transitioning to TAP because I don't remember what her name was, but the person who's just speaking said it's very misunderstood. And people call my class childcare, and I'm kind of passionate. So I kind of get on to people and say, it's not about childcare, it's about education. And so that's why we're switching over. But I feel like a lot of the standards are very similar. But that level 1 is just too much because I think 2 people have spoken so far and they both said for freshmen, a lot of it just goes over their head. They don't know what they want to be. They just thought working with kids might be fun. So I think the brain unit is great because there's a lot of interesting things that any career path they choose, they can learn from that. The personality also great. The theorists though, and I don't teach the educational history stuff in early childhood, but I see it in the TAP standards. I think that is too much for maybe a level 1. I think that might even need to be pushed to like a level 3, which TAP 2 is the level 3. But I just think that all that would go over their head and they won't really care about it yet. And then if somebody could, and it doesn't matter if it's you, Crystal, or somebody who else is teaching TAP, but I don't see a lot in the level 1 at the FOED, that says anything about working with kids. So do your guys and your students in your Foundations of Education classes not work with kids? Because currently my ECE 1 kids do work with our preschool on site, and then we also do some job shadowing with elementary schools locally. And I wouldn't want my students to miss out on doing those activities in level 1 if that doesn't really work in FOED. So I'd love to hear about if we want to add in a way for our freshmen to get some hands-on and what that might look like.
Okay. Can someone speak to Jen about it?
I'm going to jump in here for a second, if that's okay. To answer Jen's question there, I start with the observations. That's actually one of the standards in TAP 1, so in the sophomore class. Just to kind of tie in what everyone and reiterate what a lot of people have said so far, I agree that a lot of the standards in the Fundamentals of Education class could be shuffled. While I understand that theories kind of provide a foundation for a lot of learning, that was not, I just graduated from Tennessee Tech in 2014, and we did not get in depth into theories until I was a junior in college. So to me, nothing really kills that class more quickly than trying to introduce theories and the history of education. I basically spend that entire first year begging students to wait until at least TAP 1 before they make a decision about their career, because it's not until TAP 1 when we start going into the classrooms and talking about instructional strategies that I feel like they actually get this vision of what teaching is. So just to kind of tie in everything and maybe answer her question, I think it would be an awesome opportunity to, if we could shift some of those Fundamentals of Education standards into the upper classes, such as TAP 2 and the TAP Practicum, then maybe we could bump down a few of the standards in TAP 1 to give those freshman students a better all vision of what teaching is really like, because that's when I feel like they start recognizing the specific roles and responsibilities that teachers do rather than just, you know, the history of education and like the standard on educational systems, how it varies on local, state, and national levels. It's just super in depth. I love the program as much as anyone, but I definitely think there are things that we could do to help students see the different opportunities in careers in education.
All right, thank you so much, Kayleigh. I really appreciate your feedback. You said that we should shuffle around the standards. I appreciate that, and maybe take away the theorists in the history of education and move that further along in the program. Does anyone else have a comment?
We have a comment in the chat.
Okay.
I would love to see the classes reduced to 3, an intro class, middle level with a partial possible practicum, and a more in-depth teaching practicum. 4 classes are not needed.
4 classes not needed. Do you think the standards as written are preparing our students for post-secondary education? I see someone nodding their head at me. Ms. Ford, you agree we are preparing them? Okay. Are there any other industry certifications or directives that you guys know about that you can kind of bring to the group that TAP can lead to? I saw Dillman unmute.
Yes, I'm not sure about industry certifications necessarily, but I think one of the problems, at least I know in Rutherford County, that we are having with post-secondary involvement and EPSOs is we are currently having a real hard time with our post-secondary institutions wanting to work with us. So I taught dual enrollment in partnership with Motlow year before last, but they have put some class caps in place currently of needing 15 kids to make a class where previously it was 7. And within this pathway, like to get a 4th year senior to get in, and also they only would allow it for seniors. So to get 15 seniors, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is, like that know, you know, that that they're going into education, not like straight teaching, you know, like not like a different, because I have several that take our pathway because they're going to work with kids within some other industry. And so those dual enrollment classes are not as helpful, but we've had a really hard time getting post-secondary institutions to want to work with us to offer an EPSO for this pathway, which we obviously have to have. And it has been difficult. I know an AP education class has been thrown out there, like that has been mentioned before. If that is going to be a thing, I think how we approach the rest of the standards will need to align to that as a capstone class, like as the 4th year AP option. Like the rest of the standards would kind of have to align to whatever that AP class looks like. But currently, finding institutions that are really willing to give us, you know, I mean, even 2 options, you know, for a first semester and a second semester to make it a full class is difficult. We just have not had a whole, they don't want to let it go. They don't want to let us teach it. Even though they'll hire us as adjuncts to teach it on their campus, they don't want us teaching it at the high school level. They don't think they're capable, which they are. But we've run into that quite a bit. It's an issue.
I'm going to unmute and agree with her.
Okay.
We in Anderson County work through Roane State. And so I'm going into my 4th year, and in those 4 years, they would not let me teach it. And I've tried, we've gone back and forth with our administration, our CTE director, and our dual enrollment coordinator all of those people vouching for me to be able to teach it, and they wouldn't let me. And so they would send instructors, and it was really hairy, and the students didn't have a good experience. So this year we just decided to offer the class through Tennessee Tech. They said that I could be an adjunct for them, but our community colleges are really not supporting our early childhood or TAP programs. And I don't know if that's a Tennessee Board of Regents conversation that needs to be had, but I mean, we want these students to get those dual enrollment EPSO opportunities, and I just feel like they would rather go through an engineering program or a TCAT welding, and those are great opportunities for other students, but I think that our students also, I mean, most of them, if they're going to be a teacher, are going to go to college. So getting 1 or 2 college credits out of the way is going to save them money if we can do that. But I've also had that struggle, and I have been talking to other teachers who don't really know how to approach that either.
Ms. Cooper, thank you guys for your comments. That's something I can look into. I'm not really sure about that right now, but I would definitely get back to you on that. If you could put your email in the comments, I've written a note with your name, and I'll get back to you and see what I can find out about that, okay? Do we have any other comments? Does anyone have any resources that they can offer to new teachers who are about to embark on starting the teaching as a profession standards? I know some of us are in a virtual space. So if you had any virtual opportunities, ways to present it virtually to students, does anyone have any suggestions or comments on that?
My email address is in the chat feature. I dropped it in there for committee purposes, but if anyone would like to email me, I don't mind sharing. I have teachers contact me all the time, just asking for resources. I just kind of do it as needed. I have all of my digital files, you know, categorized by standard, because I know we all teach them in a different order at a different pace. But if anyone is new to this and wants to jot down my email, absolutely feel free to do so. I'm not stingy. I create a lot of my own, so it's not necessarily like a website, but I can share assignments and just kind of different resources as needed if anyone would like that.
Thank you again, Kayleigh. This is an opportunity for us to reach out to one another and help one another in any issues that we might be having. Does anyone want to add any other comments about the standards? I'm seeing that we are thinking that the progression of study might need to change. I have a question. How are your students progressing through? This is my last question for you guys. Are you seeing students drop off after starting your program at a particular point of this program of study? Any particular year that you're seeing a major gap in the amount of students enrolled in these classes? With no one talking, I'm going to assume that everyone that starts the program finishes it at your institutions or schools.
Crystal, I'm going to jump in and be honest if no one else will, but it's
okay.
After that first year or two is when, if I can keep them after fundamentals, it's a lot better. But my drop is after that freshman class.
Okay.
And I think it's twofold. I think someone mentioned earlier that a lot of kids kind of get dumped in there. That's not really their choice. So I think that's part of it. Then once they actually get to the high school after freshman year, maybe they find the program that they're actually looking for. But I also think that it is frustration with, it's boring, if we're just honest. So we lose them after that. But I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but if I can get them if I can get them through sophomore year, we're in a lot better shape.
Thank you, Kayleigh, for sharing that. That's the information we kind of need to make sure that we're making the changes that will actually affect your classrooms. I want to thank everyone for participating today and feeling free to say your comments. Remember, this is a safe space for us all. And I wanted to make sure you had the key word before we get out of here, which is West Virginia. If Kristina, if you don't mind typing that in for them just in case.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And if you are seriously interested in being a part of a committee that is going to affect the change in the schools as it relates to teaching as a profession, please reach out to me. My email address is Crystal, CRYSTAL .Applewhite, the fruit and the color, a very good teacher name, at tn.gov. Again, that's crystal.applewhite at tn.gov. And I think Kristina would be excellent to put that in the chat for me also.
Yes, ma'am. It's in there.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for participating. I have been taking notes the entire time, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.